So, good afternoon again, still from the capital of energy efficiency in Sonderborg. I have the pleasure to introduce our next guest to you, which is Thomas Nowak, who is the Secretary General of the EHPA, which is the European Heat Pump Association. Very pleased to have you here, Thomas. We just heard from Rana about the importance of phasing out fossil fuels. We also heard that it would be important to connect different sectors and not think in silos, and to look at infrastructure. So my question to you, as you're coming with a heat pump background, and have been in this field for a very long time. How do you see the deployment, the development of heat pumps as a solution to tackle the decarbonization of heating and cooling? Do you think this is going the way it should go? What are your insights from this specific sector? And perhaps you can say something also about connecting it with others, if there is something to add.
There is a lot to be said. We are positioning heat pumps at the moment as a system integration technology, because that's what it is. It bridges very nice the vectors between electricity, heating and cooling. Even if you look inside the heat pump system, then this combination of providing heating and cooling at the same time is something that needs to be used more, because every time you have cooling demand, you create a waste stream. The question is, what am I doing with that waste heat? And I think that comes to the heart of Danfoss, is to say, how can we use that efficiently, and can we deploy this heat either in the same building or in small energy grids, or even in big district heating grids, to provide heating. And by that we could cater to this idea of a net zero, by saying that we can run buildings and whole cities basically on the waste heat and on the additional energy input of the compressor. Mm-hmm. If we look at what is happening, then the times are as challenging as I've never experienced them. We see in the last year, in 2021, that nearly 2.2 million heat pumps were sold in Europe. And for us, that includes those that are used for heating, the hot water heat pumps, and it includes air to water and geothermal solutions. It also has a bit of an input from big heat pumps, industrial style and district heating, even though the data situation is not as good as it is. Is it developing as we would expect? Well, sometimes you have to ask what you have to think and consider what you wish for, because obviously we always wanted these 20% growth. Last year was plus 34%. We see now that we are running into a supply shortage. Some of the components are sitting in containers in Shanghai. We see that some of the installers have not started to educate themselves, so they cannot deliver to all the requests that they're receiving. And obviously, due to the war waged by Russia on Ukraine, we have the situation that more and more people are becoming very, very sensitive towards the need to change their heating system. And so demand is increasing. Where installers had 1 request per week, they have now 5 requests per day. And I expect that they will also start to think that they have to retrain themselves, reskill themselves, so that they can deliver.
But why are you saying they have to retrain themselves? Is there something new coming? Or is it just the fact that they have to switch from fossil fuel boiler technology to heat pump technology?
Yeah, it's just that.
So it's switch, basically.
It's not. I wouldn't agree when people say we have an overall installer shortage. We have enough installers that can, in principle, do the job, but they're of course very occupied with heating systems, which is only a small part of their daily work. And bathrooms and spas and whatever else, kitchens, what people want. So there's demand for many more things that require an installer than only the heat pump or the heating system. Mm-hmm. If we would simplify things and say, okay, can you maybe wait with your bathroom renovation and just allow 2 more people have a heat pump, then that would work. And you need about 1 week of retraining to achieve that. But then, of course, overall, that's not the problem. But overall, if we look at the political spectrum, and we have the Repower EU communication and the package that is out, it's a lot of small measures that are now delivering towards a more agile heat pump market. But it's also it creates a necessity to more than double heat pump sales. And overall, the heating market will also have to increase. And then, and this is luckily not tomorrow, but then we will need more installers. So there's actually a call for people that don't know what to do with their future. The heating and cooling segment is attractive. And that starts with installers, that continues with electricians, plumbers, but also in education, in university level education, mechanical engineers, architects, and IT, of course, because system integration, that's how we started, is something the heat pumps will become active nodes in the grid.
Yeah, and that's also about the bridging the gaps between the sectors, in fact. But why is it then, I mean, heat pumps have been around for forever. I mean, forever, not forever, but for a very long time. So if I listen to you, you see this sort of explosion of the market and it's being pushed by policy, etc. But why hasn't that happened already? I mean, it's a great technology, it's mature, so what is the problem?
But it has happened quite continuously, at least since 2015. Not on the same level than today. But in 2015, we didn't receive the same recognition from policymakers, and the industry developed nonetheless because of the inherent benefits. But now we're in a situation, I think there is a number of factors that are triggering. Of course, the war is one that triggers sensitivity. But then we also see the fast build-up of green electricity from wind and solar, and that requires some sort of demand-side flexibility, and heat pumps can deliver to that. I am talking to people that say, if we want big heat pumps in our district heating system, we need big heat pumps that have a very clean electronic footprint, so that if we switch them on, we know exactly how much electricity they will take, so that we can really use them to follow the supply curve. And that's specifically relevant here for Denmark,
where wind energy and
exactly, where you can build much more wind, you can increase the utilization factor of wind if you have more demand-side flexibility, and heat pumps can cater to that, together with electric vehicles, of course, together with smart tariffs for households, building information systems, and so on.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just seeing there is a question coming in. You were mentioning the supply shortage, the difficulties also triggered by the war in Ukraine. And the question is whether there are any plans on how to tackle that supply shortage. Is the industry reacting in a specific way?
Yes,
or?
The industry is certainly reacting. We see that a lot of players in the market are considering their value chains, are also really considering if this optimistic assumption that the global value chain will continue, if that can be maintained in the future, and if we don't need to take more of the production facilities back to Europe, or take a dual sourcing approach and look at other areas where we can source from than only Asia, which is of course often the case.
Yeah.
You have probably heard that the Biden-Harris administration has invoked the Defense Production Act, and so they want to push the deployment of photovoltaic heat pumps, electrolyzers in the US, and that is a bit of an indication that we will look more locally what we can do from our own capacities and where we really need to have this international cooperation. Personally, I think that if the COVID pandemic is sorted halfway and these global development delivery chains work again, that will do one part, but also the build-up of capacity in Europe. So in 2 to 3 years, I do think that we can come back in more calmer waters. Of course, pending that nothing else happens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, these are uncertain times. I would say so for sure. Fingers crossed.
Yes,
yeah, that's
indeed,
clear.
Indeed.
So just in the last. There are no more questions as far as I'm seeing. So in the last 2 minutes that remain, you more or less replied to that already, but I think it's worth mentioning it again, because there is sometimes this, we have on the one hand side, we often hear about this, is it energy efficiency we need, is it renewables we need, and we heard very clearly the two need to go hand in hand.
Yes.
And in the same way, we are hearing sometimes too, should we go for heat pumps or should we go for district energy? Or is it a combination of both? And I think you replied to that partly already when you referred to the sector integration aspect of things, but perhaps, if you want to
And you need to ask everybody that asks you that question, okay, in your own house, is your radiator fighting with your heat generator? And the answer is obviously no. If you have district heating, where that is installed, where that is a good idea, you need a heat generator. So the district heating is not good by itself. It depends on where the energy is coming from. And if district heating serves as a bridge between supply and demand of heat, it's perfect, of course. But then ideally, you either use waste heat from buildings, from factories, etc. You upgrade them with big heat pumps, or you use you use a number of smaller heat pumps in what we call ambient loop grids. So I do not think that there is really a conflict. We as EHPA represent manufacturers of big heat pumps that go 50 megawatts and upwards, starting maybe from 1 megawatt, but also we have a number of them in industrial processes. And then we have also many small heat pump manufacturers that are going up to maybe 100 kilowatts. And all of this is the heat pump technology, and really what we need to bring forward, and that fits very nicely with this conference. Energy efficiency is what we should do.
It's really the bridge between
connect
everything.
heating and cooling, connect electricity and heat, connect electricity and cooling, and cooperate in that. Because what we discussed that outside when you were talking, one of the biggest challenges is bringing these people with different pieces of knowledge together. The engineer that does the planning for heating and the one that does the planning for cooling, the electric engineer, etc.
Yeah.
This cooperation, I think, is also very important on a different level inside the policy area. So if we talk about institutions that have heating and renewables departments, they speak about breaking the silos, but you need to also do it. And maybe we need to rename all this. And maybe as a last sentence...
That's a story in itself, Thomas.
Yes. But what I want to give as a good example is this international cooperation that happens in the REN 21. And you interviewed Rana just before me. We are also cooperating with them. We provide the heat pump data to them, and the Global Status Report 2022 is published next week. So there is really also results of this cooperation that are really useful for everybody to make fact-based policy.
So maybe just on that note, one last question. How many heat pumps are already installed today, and how many heat pumps are expected to be installed 2030 in Europe? Do you have any numbers you can share?
Yes.
But really super short.
17 million, including sanitary hot water heat pumps, are installed by the end of 2021. If Repower EU is executed as planned, we will exceed 60 million units in 2030.
Very impressive. So thank you very much, Thomas, for your insights. My takeaways are for sure that we can integrate the systems. We have to connect the dots between the heating and cooling. We have a great technology which is out there, whether it's small heat pumps or big heat pumps. There is no competition with district heating. Rather the opposite. It can really be connected to each other. And that will also bring me to the last speaker, who will more specifically speak about the sector integration side of things. But for now, thank you very much, Thomas. As always, super entertaining and very insightful.
Thank you, Andrea.
So thank you for
the last word I have
insights.
to say is we need a heat pump accelerator to bring all this together. So
Yes.
that's my message towards
And
the
my
European
message is
Commission.
we need heat maps to see where are the heat sources and where are the heat demand and how can we connect it. So
We couldn't agree more. This is exactly part of the thing. If we want to do
Definitely.
proper planning, we need the data, we need to bring everybody together, and then we will manage. Thank you very
absolutely.
much.
Thank you.